As I sit here and ponder, you know, looking at the saddle and a finished product, I throw the saddle on my horse every day, but it's almost a reality slap to think back on what it entails to get to this finished product and some of the things that we've seen today.
Well, Lisa, we're here at Martin Saddlery today, and we're going to go through the shop. We're going to talk about your saddle and everything we do with it, and we're now production. And let's go look at the shop and walk you through the process.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so the first and of course most important part is the leather. It's the first thing we do is cut the saddle, and it's all about picking the right sides of leather, using it the best way we can, and that's the startup and the most important part of our saddle. Here at Martin Saddlery we use 100% Herman oak skirting. It's an American tan from American hides, American steer hides. Any saddle we build, we pull two sides of leather, we grade it. To look at this hide here, this is the neck, the back, the butt and the belly. And this is the flesh out side, which we use in a rough out, and the grain side, which we use in a smooth out or tool or stamped. So when we go through this, we grade for two things. One is the piece of leather and the body to it, and what it's required. And then the other thing we grade for is the cosmetic side. In the grade side, the back and the butt and the prime are in this area in the back end, and that's where we're going to get our parts that need integrity to them, which means they got some guts, which is the seat jockey, the fenders, the stirrup leathers, all got to come out of prime area. The swell cover needs to be soft and pliable, so it comes out of the belly where that hide's always stretching and going back and forth, so it can be worked on. And then the less needed parts, like the ground seat, which is just the leather that's built out of, we cut out of the neck, which is a thick, stretchy and not as hasn't got as much integrity in it. So we cut the less important parts out of the neck or anything like that. So the stirrup leathers come out of the backbone, the seat and fender come out of the prime, the skirts come out of the shoulder, swell cover comes out of the belly. Where he lays, to barbed wire marks on him, to scratching his butt on a feeder and putting a scar on it is not his concern. It becomes our concern, because those scars do come out on the leather when you oil them. So we're always grading for those marks, and it's hard to make them absolutely perfect, but that's what we work on. There's also, you may get some ends of veins and stuff, and same thing, it's not an imperfection in the leather, it's just the mark left from where the vein was in it.
Very interesting.
So it's a natural part of a naturally processed hide.
So many factors, wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yep. With that, we'll go and look at the process we go through when we are cutting a saddle.
Okay.
Okay. So this is our chocolate skirting. First thing we're going to grade for is the seat and the prime parts, and base this hide selection on that. Is based on the weight, which is already graded into the hide, and then basically is just working on feeling it for firmness and what it can do. We'll cut that seat, we'll work out what the seat block is. Okay, so once they've graded for hides, worked out what's going to be the right one for that saddle, and what seat they can get out of it, then they'll take it to the clicker and start clicking the parts out.
Okay.
So basically with that, same thing, we're going to work on process, making sure we're going to it's got a good deep prime, we can get some fenders out of the back end and set it up. And it's all, if it's a saddle we make like yours every week, we have there and off we go. Okay, so once the saddle's cut and all the parts put together, then we go through and grade it, make sure it's all right. The order's there with it. They will check each part, make sure it's the right part, make sure the leather's right. Every part gets a number, so that saddle is numbered and stays together. Okay?
Every part is numbered.
Every part is numbered,
wow.
So they know every part of the saddle stays in that saddle.
Stays in this bin.
It stays in that bin. Any parts that are pre-split, be like the swell cover or the horn, they get split. All the parts that are going to get tooled stay in this bin. From there, we'll go and cut any flower work that has to go in there. Let's go look at that. Okay, and that's all free-handed in. That's from what she knows. Okay, there's no pattern. It's every one of them is a freehand layout. Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. And basically, you know, leather tooling is like painting a picture. You draw the picture, and then the painting is the tooling where you push the different way and it makes dimension to it. So this is basically the drawing the outline. Okay. And then all the 15 different styles of saddles and 15 different tooling patterns, they do each one of these individually.
I could just sit and watch all day. So everyone that can do every pattern. And
now there's a couple other girls who can cut them with her. She's supervisor and she's our lead tooler on that. So once everything's been cut and we've drawn the picture, they're going to go and do the tooling, give it all dimension and give it the final look. We'll go look at that.
All right.
How it happens. Okay. So basically every part that's done from here is hand stamped. There's a lot of individual little tools that do different features on the leather, which help create the picture of the tooled leather. These ladies have learned all this through years of work and learning, and it is an art form. And basically, in the technical side of it, the bruising of the leather by stamping it actually pushes it away, but also brings the oil to the top in the leather, and that's what creates that look. Okay. The amount of moisture that they put in when they're tooling is a carrier which softens the leather to let that oil move and come out. So on top of all the tooling and the artistic and the other fun stuff, there's also the painting and the antiquing and dyeing, which we'll look at, which is one more way to make them saddles prettier and have more fun building them. So right now we go over here where all our parts are hand painted and hand dyed. So here's a painted buck stitch, and one of the reasons we do painted buck stitch rather than real buck stitch is it doesn't wear out and wear off. It's actually because it's pushed into the leather, and it doesn't affect the integrity of the saddle, and you can put it anywhere that you can tool, whereas the hand buck stitch is a little more complicated to put in areas, and this is this one, like I said, if you don't like it, you can always change colours on it too.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you can touch it back up. And this is some of the dyeing where we've done this. This would be a dark framed dye that we'll go back over an antique and create a look that we'll look at in finishing in a little while. Okay, so we've got all our tool parts, and the next thing we're going to need is a tree, so we're going to go to the tree shop and see how we make them, go through that process. And basically it all starts with the development of a tree. When it comes to your tree or any tree we make, we'll start with what we want. We will build the first patterns out of wood, which is what we have here, and we'll hand cut these and we'll lay them up, sand them, make them up as we want. Probably cover the first prototype in fiberglass, run it through the duplicators, which we'll look at soon, and and then we can put the tree together from it. If it is a saddle such as yours that goes into production, we'll then cast these parts in aluminum. And this right here is what we have currently in production, or what we would use. That we have a master pattern of each, which we run through in the duplicators, and they are basically a big key cutting machine that will duplicate off our pattern and cut that off a block of wood. Our wood we use is from your state. It's South Dakota Black Hills Ponderosa pine. It's a harvested pine. Comes to us from Sturgis. And they pre-cut that wood into the sizes we use for the bar of a tree, the fork, the swell of a tree, which we'll make sure everyone knows. These are the bars. This is the cannel, and this is the swell of the fork. So we have all the sizes we need cut up there. For once it's cut, and once it's graded and then cut, then they'll put it in a kiln and dry it, where they bring the moisture content down to a desirable amount, to where the wood won't want to twist and move. Because wet, fresh cut wood will twist and move. If you've ever seen a 2x4 that's been too wet in a house, it'll twist and not be usable. We bring it in here, cut it and put it through the duplicators. The tree goes in a jig, which sets it at the right symmetrical angles and everything for us to build on. And then when everything's put together, covered in fiberglass, and our tree is produced. And every tree that's been made for that order has an order for the customer, and then they'll get it on their job, and they will make sure they apply it with whatever horn, the way it's supposed to be done, what's been picked off the order for each of these. And so from here, let's go look at all the processes we do.
Okay.
So we're getting the horn ready right now. It has the button on. He's getting the neck wrap ready. He'll trim the excess of the neck wrap up, and then he'll start getting his horn wrap ready and putting that on, which we'll look at in a while. Okay. And with the fiberglass ground seat that we talked about being built into the tree, then we apply the piece of leather, and they'll shape it and get all the final shape that we're looking for, and get our seat perfect how we want them. And here's one of the finished swell covers, like we talked about, on how they're going to be after they've been wet and molded on there. Okay, and nailed and glued down.
Things are taking shape.
Yes, ma'am. Start to. We'll go look at the seat from here. So here's the seat we're in process of cutting. So it's been one half cut, folded up, cut the other half. Now he's starting to fit it with the skirt on there, so it's got the final shape. We're trimming the ears around where the concha will be to match up with the front of the skirt and get it all laid in place. And it's all blocked and molded in there, so it's going to be the shape it needs to be to lay down. So here's and the seats that have been tooled have come back. This one has the overlay on it, and from there the padded seat's been cut and fitted, and it's about to go to sewing to get the last part of the stitching done on this.
Like a kid in a candy store looking around here. There's so many different things to look at. Wow.
So we're at the stage where this is his piece of an elephant hide and a suede, and either way it's marking this up, so it's going to be cut to the right size to make the seat for that saddle. The next job, we got the padded seats already been finished, fitted, glued down. Now we're preparing for the roll, the Cheyenne roll, or the whatever roll it would be on there, and getting that all prepared to then supply the cantle binder. So the last thing, once the skirts are fitted, if it's a double skirt, the back jockey goes on. If it's a single skirt, once the skirts are fitted, the saddles come off the assembly and they'll go through an inspection, what it does is basically, one, make sure we got the order filled right, and two, it's done in the right way before they go to the finishing and oiling process, which is our next and final stage.
Okay.
So we get the box and the saddle, and for the first 2 days they'll be oiled and sat still to let that oil settle. Oiled again the next day, and that one lets that oil set in, lets us see where the colour's going, so we're always trying to keep that oil evenly coloured by the time it goes out the door. So that'll happen for 2 days. We're going to go watch them oil one. We're going to talk about the reasons for it and what we try to achieve in this process.
Okay.
Okay.
So 2 days of oiling.
2 days of oiling. And right here, here's one of yours. This is the Fearless. Now, even though it's antiqued and it's a weathered antique we've done on there, we're still going to apply oil. The oil will work its way through that antique, and we're definitely going to do oil on the rough out as well. We add neat's foot oil to the saddle. It's advised to us by Herman Oak, and we like to as well. It gives that leather a now more broken feel. It makes it more pliant, a little more supple, a little more easy to break the saddle in. It does get rid of some of the squeak, and we'll talk about the other stuff we do on that as well to get rid of that. But what that's going to do, it's going to enhance that leather and give that saddle to you where it doesn't feel like it's going to take you 2 months to get where you enjoy riding it. So the first time you get in it, you get a feel of that saddle how it should be, and it's going to be the leather that we've invested in has got good protection to it.
Quick question. So, what would be your recommendation for people maintaining and keeping their saddle?
Okay. I always judge it down to what's going on with the saddle. If it's stored in a tack room that's not that hot, and not having a lot of wet and dry conditions on it. If it's in pretty mild use, I'll oil it and treat it the same. I won't be heavy oiling it all the time. I'd be just using a light conditioner or something light that will keep it at that good pliable main level. The other extreme cases, if that saddle's going through extreme heat and extreme moisture, if it's in the back of a trailer, and it's been hauled all summer, and it's got that 100-degree heat beating on it, and it's getting drier, and then you ride it 15 wet rodeos and it gets soaking wet and then dried out again. That water's getting in there, and when it dries out, it's pulling all the oil back out of that leather. So that leather, and the horse sweat does the same. Horse sweat's driven in, and even worse with salt in it, and dries that leather out and pulls all the oil back out. So you need to replenish it. So that's an extreme case, a training barn, or like I say, getting soaked wet 10 times a summer. Right. You've got to put oil back in. If your saddle's never in that condition and you excessively oil it, you have an excessively oiled saddle, okay? And you get to wear more of it than the saddle. So there's a fine line. And same here, we will oil to enough to where even sitting in the first 6 weeks you own that saddle will still be drying out. You know, that oil will still be soaking in. So we're going to try to oil to that point where it's not just good when it leaves here, it's going to be good, you know, for a while after that. So that's what you judge it on the conditions you put the saddle through. Okay.
So as you mentioned, light conditioner, what would you recommend?
Anything, like I said, if it's light, something that to me it's something, if you'd put it on your skin, I'd put it on the saddle in light, because it's not going to change it drastically. I'm going to use a neat's foot oil.
For drastic measures.
For drastic measures, I'm going to use a neat's foot oil. So once we've done the oiling process, we've put the saddle together after it's 2 coats of oil, it's had a 3rd coat and a touch-up and everything, then it comes to our inspection process. So every day, the saddles that are ready to be shipped go through an inspection where we go back to the order, read everything on the order, make sure it was done correctly. From there, they'll check that we got a quality list that they go through and make sure that the stitching's right, make sure that everything ties together right, that nothing's uneven. During that process, they will also sit in the saddle and make sure all the squeaks are out of it. And we have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years especially eliminating all that annoying squeak that you can't hear yourself over when you first buy a saddle. Ours, we try to make it there where they're so close to silent. And basically with that, we've got up inside and extra oiled with special oils, everything that does create squeak, and it's amazing the places that do. And we've located the majority of them to where when you put this saddle on and you go to ride it the first time, it's going to feel like it's broke in. And it's not, you're not going to be picturing, well, how's this saddle going to feel in a month's time? Right. You can get a really good feel of how it's going to feel that first day, or when they sit in a store, whichever way that be.
Absolutely. So, I can vouch for that. Yeah. Like you said, the feel, it comes out of the box, it's ready to go, and the no squeaking, I mean, absolutely.
And our goal is to be the same thing, when people do open that box, that saddle's everything they expect it to be. The toolings is cool, the colour came in is good, the leather looks as good. And every bit of quality they wanted for, and they got. We put lots of effort into it. It doesn't happen by chance here.
That's obvious, very obvious. Okay.